Hello and welcome to the first episode of Drishti's revision series for Prelims 2021 from Economy section. In this series, we will discuss important events from Economy section important for the upcoming Prelims. The first news important for upcoming Prelims is National Monetization Plan. Now, this was in news because firstly, it was announced in budget for this year 2021, and later on, a report was released on this National Monetization Pipeline for different ministries and CPSEs, that is public sector enterprises. Now, this is for a period of 4 years. So, this is the first important thing you have to remember, that is 2022 to 2025. Now, monetization is a different word from, let's say, other words like strategic disinvestment or privatization. What is the difference? We'll deal later. But the monetization of assets worth 6 lakh crore is planned. Now, what are those assets? Those assets belong to railways, electricity, highways, and other similar projects, other similar assets will be monetized, and they will be brownfield projects. So, this is the second important thing. There can be a statement type question for this kind of topic. Different statements would be given. So, you need to know that the period is 2022 to 25 and brownfield projects. So, there are two kinds of projects. Now, one is greenfield, in which a new investment is to be made. The second one is brownfield, that is investment has already been made. There is a certain infrastructure that is to be used or there new investment has to be made. Moving on further, Niti Aayog as well as Finance Ministry, they both will work together on this pipeline, and government recently constituted a core group of secretaries for asset monetization, and cabinet secretary will preside over it. Not a very important piece of information, but you should know. And only the ministries and central public sector enterprises, CPSEs, related to the infrastructure sector are involved. Why? Because government is aiming to generate this 6 lakh crore rupees and is aiming to invest it into infrastructure of the country. Now, this monetization will be only of rights, right to generate revenue for a fixed period of time and not of ownership. This is how it is different from strategic disinvestment or privatization. And out of this 6 lakh crores, 27% monetization will be from road sector and followed by railway sector and then energy, gas and telecom. So, this is the basic constitution of National Monetization Pipeline. Moving on further, Samriddhi scheme was in news. Firstly, you need to know that which ministry is leading this scheme. Now, since we are dealing with the economy section, mostly Ministry of Finance comes to our mind. But here it is led by Ministry of Electronics and Information and Technology, commonly called as METI, and this is aimed at, S here stands for startups. So, this is the second potential question. First, the ministry, that is METI, and second, it is aimed at startups. You can also look at the full form, that is Startups Accelerators of METI for Product Innovation, Development and Growth. Quite a interesting acronym which has been a motive of this government. Moving on further, the focus will be on innovation, development and growth of startups, the product the startup is offering. Moving on further, so they aim to create a better investment atmosphere for the upcoming startups, especially in the software field. And it will not only fund startups, there is a pool, there is a fund, but it will not only fund startups, but will also help in supporting skills. And already the aim is to fund or guide 300 fast growing startups, and the fund has provision for funding each startup up to a sum of 40 lakhs. Moving on further, again a fund, �𝐸𝐻𝐒 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐒 fund. So, this fund has been set up to promote MSME sector, and for this MSME sector, two banks together, two financial institutions actually, Exim Bank and SIDBI have come together. Exim Bank is a financial institution which aims at financing the country's export basically, and SIDBI is aimed at basically the MSME sector, facilitating the operations of MSME sector. And with this fund, 𝐈𝐀𝐒 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐻 fund, the aim is to identify potential Indian enterprises which are promising but are facing difficulty. So this fund will take care of them with the corpus it has generated by both 𝐈𝐀𝐒 and SIDBI, and it will provide both financial as well as advisory services to such companies from MSME sector. And how this support will be provided? It will be provided through equity and other such instruments. Now, equity is slightly different from shares. Equity means this body, the one which is providing this fund set up by 𝐈𝐀𝐒 and SIDBI together, will take certain part of ownership, and that is called here equity. A difference here is also that equity is not as easily tradable in the market as is share. So, and with the help of loan can also be taken via this fund. Now, companies will be able to get not only these loans in the form of soft loans. Soft loans means at a lower rate of interest, but also advisory services, grants, and other similar supportive things. Now, SIDBI and 𝐸XIM Bank have already 100 potential companies in their pipeline for this support. Most of them at present are from Uttar Pradesh, but other examples are also there. Now, this 𝐈𝐻𝐒 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐻 fund or Rising Stars fund is basically an alternative investment fund. Now, what is an alternative investment fund? You don't need to know it in much detail. You just need to know the definition that it is a private channel of investment, an alternative channel of investment, and it has been defined properly under SEBI rules, SEBI regulations of 2012, and in it certain investors, both Indian and foreign investors, are allowed to pool their fund to be invested somewhere. So basically, alternative investment fund described in the SEBI regulations of 2012, they come in different categories. They are infrastructure and social funds that are directed to this sector. Then there are private equity funds and debt funds. They behave differently because in the equity, you take a part of ownership, you claim a stake in the company. In debt funds, you provide fund. And then there are hedge funds, that is, a fund is collectively pooled by investors, and that is invested in speculative markets. So the hedging word itself means that hedging against some danger. So it goes for speculative investment, but at the same time promises certain high level of returns. Moving on further, as we discussed, there are certain kinds of funds: capital funds, hedge funds, private equity funds. There are commodity funds, basically, which invest in raw materials or primary sector. So these are the various kinds of funds. Infrastructure funds like InvITs, REITs, we have read them separately in economy section, basically which are focused on infrastructure. Moving on further, financial inclusion index was in news. Why? Because RBI has released this index, and this is the first composite index of RBI. What do we mean by composite? That it takes care of certain parameters or many parameters, basically, to check the status of financial inclusion in the country. Now, the government has been focused on improving the financial inclusion in the country. Several schemes like Jan Dhan Yojana, GEM, Trinity, they were used. Now, RBI has come up with this index to measure the success of those measures. So it has no base year. So usually such indexes have base years. So that can be a statement that it has the N base year, but no, it has no base year. It is released annually in the month of July. So it is important that it is released annually. It is important to remember this. Second, it has no base year. And the most important thing is it is released by RBI. And so again, it evaluates the work done by stakeholders towards financial inclusion. And the special focus is on 4 things, that is banking, investment, insurance, and pension sectors, that how far these things or these facilities have percolated in the Indian society and how it will be measured. So a score will be assigned between 0 to 100, 0 will be the lowest, 100 would mean complete financial inclusion, and 3 parameters that, let's say for banking, do people have access to banking? If they have access, do they use it properly, or are they being able to use it frequently? And the quality of their experience. So these 3 parameters would be focused upon, and in this index the maximum focus is on usage. So you should know that on the 3 parameters, usage has the maximum weightage in this index, followed by access, and then there is quality 45%, 35% and 20%. So 97 micro parameters are there. You need not to know all the parameters, but the focus is on financial literacy, consumer protection. So if there is a statement and we see consumer protection, we may feel that no, this only focuses on financial inclusion, but as per the RBI or as per the guidelines of RBI, even consumer protection is an important element of financial inclusion, and obviously the inequality and deprivation in these services. So this is all about financial inclusion index. Moving on further, that RBI has planned a digital currency and it has undertaken a pilot project. Now, cryptocurrency have been in news of late, or not only of late, since last few years. So cryptocurrency is also a form of digital currency. So every cryptocurrency is a form of digital currency, but not every digital currency is a cryptocurrency. Why? Because cryptocurrency is quite decentralized. Crypto means hidden or something secretive, while if RBI comes up with a digital currency, it would be let's say under the control of a centralized agency, while cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, they don't have any centralized control as such. Now, India currently has no digital currency, so RBI is running this pilot to have a digital currency of its own soon, and it has prepared a framework. Now, this committee has suggested a CBDC, that is central bank digital currency. We just said it is not exactly a cryptocurrency because a central bank will have a control over it. Yet it is a digital currency because it will be transacted upon electronically, and again it will be based on a ledger kind of technology which will ensure transparency. Now, RBI is undertaking this project, so it has to take care of certain rules and regulations because it has all the power to issue notes, except the 1 rupee note, which is issued by the Ministry of Finance. Finance Secretary signs this only note, all the other are signed by RBI Governor, and RBI is considering the implementation for this currency in both retail as well as wholesale markets. What will be the benefits? The whole cost of printing, transportation and storing notes will be reduced, and the mode will be electronic. So let's say if a person at present has 100 rupees in his account, when he deposits this 100 rupees into his account, so the bank keeps 20 rupees and lends the remaining 80. So in the economy, the money becomes 180. This benefit will not be available with this digital currency, because in this the intermediary banks will be out of the equation. RBI will have direct control. The person who has 100 rupees in this digital currency will directly or anytime can use this digital currency. So this benefit won't be available, but these other benefits, like let's say it is said that out of the trillions of dollars of economy which is generated every year, 3% of it is spent in the transaction costs levied by, let's say, cards companies, banks and other similar intermediaries. So this whole 3% of trillions of dollars of world economy will be saved. So these are the pros and cons. Well, moving on forward, there is another news, PLI scheme for specialty steel. Now, several sectors were included in the product linked incentive schemes by Government of India. We'll know what is product linked incentive scheme. First, let us know that this particular scheme, so for every sector this period is different. So this is not very important, but just for the sake of information, you should know that for specialty steel it will be from 2023-24 to 27-28, and it is estimated to boost production to 42 metric ton by end of 26-27. And the question arises, what is this specialty steel? So it is basically a kind of value added steel. The common steel, not so common actually, but the common steel is coated, polished, plated and heat treated, and then it becomes specialty steel, and it has several uses in defense, space, energy, etc. So there was a different kind of question regarding definition of technical textiles a few years back. Similarly, there can be a question of specialty steel. So that is one thing. Second, it is included in PLI scheme. Why? We want to boost the production. India has so much use of this specialty steel, but the production here is very low. We are dependent upon imports. So that is why it has been included in PLI scheme. This PLI, specialty steel accounts for 60% of the total steel imports in the country, and that is why obviously PLI, it has been included under PLI scheme. It wants to make countries self-reliant in terms of production of specialty steel. Moving on further, investment climate statement. So basically it is a report released by US State Department. So first, this is the first piece of information which is important, or perhaps the only piece of information which is important from this part of this news item, apart from a few tidbits. So what this report said, not of much important, but certain terms may be important. Like they said that doing business in India is still challenging from their perspective, and they say that India should provide barrier-free business environment. They say that India has certain kind of tariffs and other non-tariff barriers that are still to be removed, and India need to reduce those investment barriers as well as this bureaucratic hurdles in the investment. Now they say that India has many protectionist measures, the recent tariff hikes, the procurement rules which have been changed, mandating the indigenous manufacture of certain components in certain industries. So this report states, this US State Department's report, investment climate statement, says that this is harming the investment climate in India. Now they also say that the application of sanitary and psychosanitary measures. What are these measures? As I said, certain terms may be important. These are the measures to ensure the plant and animal food safety guidelines, and they say that it is not being enforced in India properly, while they point out towards certain steps which have been taken to smoothen the investment in India, like FDI limit in insurance sector has been increased from 49 to 74%. They also point out that how the PLI schemes have been set up, and the PLI schemes have no barrier for actually domestic or foreign, both domestic and foreign companies are invited, but they need to manufacture their products here in textile, automobile, pharmaceutical, as well as we just mentioned specialty steel. In several sectors PLI scheme has been implemented. So that is all about that report. Moving on further, bare necessities index. Now this index was for once mentioned in economic survey of 2021. It originated with the idea of thalynomics mentioned again in the same economic survey. We need to remember it was mentioned only in the economic survey, and this bare necessities index was calculated or was created at rural, urban as well as all India level. It had 26 indicators and it used data from National Statistical Office. These all details are not important. The only detail is that it was mentioned here in the economic survey of 2021, and it counts because it says that the word has already moved from roti, kapda and makan, these bare necessities. There are more basic necessities to be included, and that is why it has included what we mentioned as 26 indicators. And so access to water, housing, sanitation, microenvironment, the immediate environment and other facilities, and it said that they have improved in 2018 vis-a-vis 2012, and they said that improvement has been seen in all the states. And yet, while there are certain disparities in this access to bare necessities, these disparities have also reduced and the access has increased disproportionately for the poorest households in comparison to the richest households. So, this is all Ghoti-Good index and Ghoti-Good term can be remembered. It was mentioned in Economic Survey 2021. So, that is all for today's episode of Prelims Revision Series for Economics. We will be coming with more important news in the upcoming episodes and will finish them as soon as possible. You do continue to revise your topics. All the best for the upcoming exam.